Genesis 37 highlights the work of God, how he even uses sin and human errors to carry out his supreme plans. This chapter is not just the narrative of a dreamer boy, but the beginning of a process that would protect an entire nation, preparing it for the story of redemption. The text begins with Joseph, who was one of Israel's, Jacob's, favorite sons and did not have a very pleasant relationship with his brothers. They hated him for being a snitch, as he told their father everything the brothers did. And the dreams that Joseph had, which he recounted with contentment, generated in his brothers a great repulsion toward him. Jose liked to tell his dreams, and in one of them, he saw sheaves of the field floating. But for his brothers, this was an insult, as they thought Joseph wanted to reign over them, and because of this, they harbored a lot of anger toward him. Jose had another dream, in which he saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down before him. He narrates the dream to his brothers and father, but is reprimanded. Again, the brothers thought that they and their families would bow down before Joseph, and this caused a lot of jealousy among his brothers. His father kept the dream that Joseph told him in his memory. For these situations, as a consequence, there was an unpleasant outcome, which led Jose to end up in a dark well, planned by his own brothers. There was a great conflict. Then Joseph's brothers changed their plans and finally ended up selling Joseph to the strangers. He was 17 years old when he was sold. His brothers, after selling Joseph, took his tunic, which he had received from his father, and brought it to Israel, Jacob, saying that their brother had been devoured by a ferocious animal. Israel, Jacob, goes into mourning and tears his clothes as a form of grief for the loss of his son, leaving him with enormous sadness. The act of selling Joseph, carried out by his brothers, left him perplexed at witnessing such cruelty. At first, they wanted to kill him, but at the suggestion of one of his brothers, there was a request not to commit such a sacrilege. Because of this, his brothers decided to throw him into an empty cistern. While the brothers were eating, merchants approached, and one of the brothers made the fateful suggestion to sell Joseph. Then, Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver, and the merchants took him to Egypt. Reuben, the oldest brother, even tried to free Joseph. But he was unsuccessful, becoming very distressed. He even told his other brothers about his agony, but they all ignored him. To cover up what they had done to their father, they took Joseph's tunic and soaked it in the blood of a lamb they had sacrificed. Then, with the tunic full of blood, they took it to the father, who suspected it was Joseph's. What was told to the father was that Joseph had been attacked by a wild animal. Israel, Jacob, had a reaction of immense pain, and as was the custom, he tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his shoulders. His sadness left his family devastated. His other children could have reversed this pain by telling the truth, but they preferred not to reveal the secret that Jose was alive. Meanwhile, Joseph was sold again, but this time to a Pharaoh's eunuch, an official named Potiphar. In the next chapters, you will know the outcome of this entire story. We see that this provision was made by God for a greater good, for he had a great purpose for Joseph. Joseph was humiliated by his brothers, but he would be exalted by God. God's intent was for Joseph to be able to save his family through the great tribulation they would go through, and his promise made previously to Abraham, to multiply his generation. God sometimes changes situations and destinies, and at first, we think it has happened according to our will. But God takes these actions because he has a much greater and better purpose for us. It is necessary to wait, for everything is in God's time. And be assured that what is to come will be much better, divine, and with God's blessings. We see that Joseph was sold by his brothers, but his story has much to teach us about trial, faith, and separation. God had a great purpose in the life and family of Joseph. We observe once again envy at work among brothers, just as it happened with Esau and Jacob, and between Cain and Abel. But, in this case, it changed Joseph's destiny, who is notoriously his father's favorite. It is worth mentioning something important here. One must have wisdom in dealing with children, so as not to create animosities or disputes among siblings. Oftentimes, this occurs unconsciously, in the search for affection and attention inherent to human beings. It is necessary to be attentive to recognize this feeling and work on this issue, in order to also appease these conflicts. Be aware that, unintentionally, you may not show differences in treatment due to having more affinity with one child over another, and we are not talking about feelings, loving the children equally and unconditionally, sometimes being more receptive to one child for various reasons, personality, empathy, fragility, etc. On the other hand, the child themselves may create fantasies regarding their own acceptance, compromising their future self-esteem. It is up to the parents to observe and channel this feeling assertively. Here, Jacob's preference for Joseph made him hated by his brothers. But we saw in his prophetic dreams that God had greater and better plans for Joseph, so much so that he used him as an instrument of salvation for his entire family. I see that, although God uses the Bible together with the Holy Spirit, he can still use dreams and prophets to guide us. But this cannot be done from our desires and the flesh. After knowing God's proposal for humanity in Jesus Christ, we see how important it is for parents to raise children with God's manual. With the teaching of the Word, they will be able to understand the root of evil, obedience, and wisdom to make choices, in friendships, in their relationships, in honoring their parents, and not putting their destinies in things, situations, or people, having good spirits, not being anxious, and rejecting sin. Thus, with spiritual gaps closed, they will have a life blessed by God. We also observe that God uses human failures and transgressions to fulfill his purposes. For neither resentment nor preferences thwart God's plan. And this gives us confidence when we notice sad and fatal circumstances around us. Dispute and resentment can lead to hatred, rejection, and enmity. Therefore, we must observe our heart and seek inner peace. God's guidance acts even in the details, for he takes care even of the unforeseen and what happens without planning. So, sometimes we go through occasions when it seems like our dreams have been shattered. But God is working, even when we don't notice. Therefore, we should never fail to appreciate what God can do through pain or affliction. For these anguishes prepare and refines us to save, welcome, and help families, people, and lives. Glorious God! Did you like the content? Leave your like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more inspirational messages. Thank you for watching the video. We'll see you in the next video.